Here we are looking at frame 335 of the Zapruder film. You can clearly see in the left rear portion of the president's head a wound. This is an exit wound, as it is rather large. The large and more noticeable wound in the right front of his head is also a wound of exit. This bullet had entered from behind the president. Note the direction in which the scalp is facing. It looks just like you would expect it to look after a bullet has punched through from the rear. Some people who benefited from the assassination, one of them was Lyndon Johnson. Uh, Johnson was involved in a lot of corrupt activities, including some fraudulent real estate deals in Texas, and he was known to have been responsible for having those who threatened these activities murdered. Uh, his hitman was a man by the name of Mac Wallace, who I have learned that his fingerprints were found in the Texas School Book Depository building uh, on the day of the assassination. By the way, the FBI has not done anything with this. It's been kept pretty quiet. Uh, Another person who hated the Kennedys was J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover was known to blackmail people, including President Kennedy. Uh, Hoover had photos of Kennedy leaving the homes of women at odd hours of the morning. Uh, so this is how LBJ got to be on the ticket for the 1960 Democratic ticket. Uh, a lot of people have wondered how this had happened because Johnson did not like the Kennedys. So, the Kennedys really didn't like Johnson all that much. So, people have wondered, how did LBJ get to be vice president? Well, here it is. Hoover had pictures of Kennedy of his being involved with different women and things such as that. JFK obviously did not want these pictures to go public, so that is how LBJ got to be the vice president. Some other figures who were involved in this, a man by the name of Billy Saul Estes, who was a corrupt associate of LBJ, and also a man named Clint Murchison, an oil billionaire who was friends with Carlos Marcello and with Allen Dulles. Billy Saul Estes testified before a grand jury in 1984 that Lyndon Johnson was responsible for the deaths of 8 people. The last on the list of the 8 people being President John F. Kennedy. From what I have read, this trial that Mr. Estes was involved in resulted in the posthumous conviction of LBJ for the murder of President Kennedy. Clint Murchison was a very rich man. He had 500 companies. His wealth was primarily through oil. He had a motive, a financial motive certainly, to want Kennedy out of the way, because Kennedy was going to do away with some of the unfair tax loopholes that were in favor of the oil people. Rumor has it, I haven't really seen any hard proof that this happened, but there was supposedly a party at Mr. Murchison's mansion the night before the assassination. This has been told by LBJ's mistress, Madeline Brown. She supposedly ran into Johnson at the party, and he told her that after tomorrow, those blankety blank Kennedys will never embarrass me again. That's not a threat, that's a promise. There has been some dispute as to whether this party took place, so I can't really say if it happened or not, because there's just no evidence that I've seen to support that. National Security Action Memorandum Number 263 stated that it was Kennedy's intention to withdraw all of our forces from Vietnam by the end of 1965. Kennedy stated in an interview, I think it was in sometime towards the end of 1963, that in the end, or in the final analysis, it is their war. They're the ones who have to win it or lose it. It was his belief that unless the South Vietnamese government made a better effort to win the support of the South Vietnamese people, that the war could not be won. So in other words, he did not want to waste American lives and billions of dollars on a war that we could not win. National Security Action Memorandum Number 273, drafted mere days after the assassination, reversed JFK's policy. The Tonkin Resolution was passed after the alleged August 2nd through 4th, 1964 incident in which our ships were attacked by enemy ships in international waters. It was later revealed that our ships were actually in violation of North Vietnamese waters. What this means is that we intentionally provoked the North Vietnamese to give the president the ability or the excuse to approve the Tonkin Resolution, which gave him blanket power basically to escalate the war to any level that he saw necessary, supposedly to protect American interest in the area. As a result of this, over 500,000 troops were deployed in South Vietnam by 1968, and 58,000 of those never made it back home. And well in excess of $100 billion was wasted on Vietnam, a war that we could not win. And we could not win it because the South Vietnamese government did not have the support of the South Vietnamese people, which is why the Viet Cong was so successful in South Vietnam, because the government in South Vietnam was not popular at all. It repressed people, and it just was not a very good government. If you don't have the support of, if a government does not have the support of the people, it cannot survive, and it cannot win a war. It's going to fall. Which, we left South Vietnam in 1973. 2 years later, in 1975, the North Vietnamese invaded the South again. It did not take them long to conquer it, and so everything that we did in South Vietnam was for nothing. In short, LBJ was afraid of going to jail. He was being exposed for the corrupt person that he was, and he was, I'll say it again, he was very afraid of going to jail for his illegal activities, again, which included land fraud deals and murder. J. Edgar Hoover was afraid of being blackmailed and possibly losing his job, because the mob had some photographs of him engaged in a homosexual activity with Clyde Tolson, who was his number 2 man, I think. And so he had a motive for wanting the Kennedys out of power. JFK's brother, Robert Kennedy, went after the mob with a vengeance, and so Hoover was feeling pressure from the mob and they had told him that uh, if the government did not lay off, that they were going to expose him, they were going to expose his lifestyle. And so Hoover and LBJ were in a much better position to stop these events from occurring after the death of JFK. Johnson became president of the United States, and so he had control over the Justice Department. He told them to stop. Obviously, he was able to put a stop to the investigation. And Hoover got what he wanted because eventually Robert Kennedy was no longer in power as the Attorney General. Uh, the thinking for this was, if you kill the head, the body dies. So without John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy's tenure as Attorney General wasn't going to last for very long.